Back from a 1 week suspension for videos to a book by Sergey Montask on Project Bluebeam, laid out some steps about mind control to be used in these during this operation. And anyway, I went too far correlating that ouchie to this mind control. Um, so anyway, that's behind us, and let's get into this one. Yesterday, we have a report that sensitive U.S. military emails were being poured out onto the open internet for 2 weeks, and what nobody else is connecting is, I seem to be the first one to do it, is that this would correlate with the time that these Chinese balloons were flying all over the country and other objects that we supposedly didn't know what they were. Still don't know what they were. Okay, but that's all been memory hold now. They never even got debris from it. Nothing. So that's all memory hold now. So nobody's making this connection. So let's get into it right now. According to a publication called TechCrunch, a government cloud email server was connected to the internet without a password. Now, take that in. And the first thing I want you to pull from your memory hole is that unsecure closet server that HRC had in her Chappaqua, New York apartment. The one without a password. That was basically carbon copying copies of every email that came through that server to a Chinese shell company. Okay? TechCrunch reports that the U.S. Department of Defense secured an exposed server on Monday that was spilling internal U.S. military emails to the open internet for the past 2 weeks. The exposed server was hosted on Microsoft's Azure government cloud for Department of Defense contractors. Thank you for the likes, guys. Which uses servers that are physically separated from other commercial customers' servers, and as such can be used to share sensitive but unclassified government data. Now, the exposed server was part of an internal mailbox system that stored about 3 terabytes of internal military emails, many pertaining to U.S. Special Operations Command and the U.S. military unit, get this, tasked with conducting special military operations. So it seems to me somebody may have wanted to see if there was any special military operations that they need to know about. But it gets worse. Let's continue. The article goes on to say that, and I want you to pay attention to the wording here, please. It says that, quote, but a misconfiguration left the server without a password, allowing anyone on the internet access to the sensitive mailbox data inside using only a web browser just by knowing its IP address. Now, folks, I'm no techie, but I can imagine what kind of security protocol something like this must have in place. This seems to be a special server that is reserved for defense contractors and defense business with a special secure mailbox system. It seems to me that the open internet and this server would and should never communicate with each other, and this seems to be true based on the fact that the server and internal mailbox has been specially configured. If you read the article, it was noted that Microsoft's Azure cloud, they states that a misconfiguration left the server without a password. A misconfiguration. Okay? So for some time, I think years, it seems, the server had been configured, which with regard to computing, configured means to arrange or order a computer system or an element of it so as to fit it for a designated task. So somebody arranged this system to be its own system and to be secure. But as the article states, about 2 weeks ago, a misconfiguration left the server without a password. Now, remember what we do here, basically. We don't just recite out news articles to you. We analyze the news reports and point out all the little mind control tactics used by the controllers, the tactics, the omissions, the word games, the semantics, the muddying up of things. And this is one of those learning moments for some, hopefully some new people, if YouTube will ever allow anybody to come see this that's new. Pick up on this stuff. Misconfiguration. Now, we just broke configuration down. We just broke it all down. Somebody had to configure this initially. A human had to go into this and reconfigure it. Okay? We see them explain this in a more confusing way here with misconfiguration. So they're alluding to there being a mistake being made. Misconfiguration, misinformation, mistake. Okay? It's alluding to a mistake. As if someone in charge of a military server would even have the ability to make a mistake like this. I can't imagine the checks and balances that these high-tech billion-dollar hotshot companies would have in place. You know, these companies are meticulous with the things that they do and their marketing, and they're not, I'm telling you, this isn't an accident. What I'm alleging here is that it's not a misconfiguration at all, but instead a reconfiguration. A reconfiguration was done here, causing this information to become available to anyone who knew it was there. This is intentional. Now, I'd like you to think back since right before the midterms and after. All of these accusations about politicians taking classified information. I'd like you to think about the classified material stored at the UPenn Biden Center or in Biden's Delaware garage. I want you to read the Hunter business emails speaking on classified information pertaining to energy companies in Eastern Europe and other countries. I'd like you to think about Obama still having over 30,000 documents hidden from public under the guise of them being digitized. I've reported on this in the past. I've posited that much of our classified information is being sold off to hostile foreign nations, most seemingly China. Clinton's sock drawer, did I mention that? With all these classified material accusations flying around, searches, and in fact raids of past presidents and vice presidents' homes, it seems to me that there could have been something going on behind the scenes here. Remember, there's a war currently raging on, an information war. And it's indeed World War III. Actually, it may still be World War II, a continuation of it, as we seem to still be fighting the same enemy, the enemy that we took in after the war and placed into high-level government agency positions. And so since there's a war going on, I believe, and maybe there's something going on behind the scenes playing out. That's why we're seeing all this confusing classified information and this and that that's been coming out lately. And now we see this. Okay. Now, maybe there's some more things going on behind the scenes. Maybe somebody is putting a stop to the peddling of all this classified information. Or maybe all this attention that's been drawn to it is making it no longer a viable or safe method of selling off our classified sensitive information. So they need another way to do it. You know, these people, the ones that are in control of things behind the scenes, you know, they always get their way, always. Remember the video that I did called Generational Wealth a few weeks ago? These people are spoiled brats. They've been born into a world where they get whatever it is that they want, no questions asked. I'm talking about the controllers. And so it's been going on for generations. It's the epitome of privilege. If someone somehow put a stop to their accessing of classified and sensitive information, they're not going to just roll over and say, damn, it was a good run. No, they'll find another way to get this information. It'll be by any means necessary. These people are ruthless. Now, you guys remember the Chinese spy balloons from 2 weeks ago, I guess. The one they spotted as soon as it hit the U.S. airspace, but they allowed it to meander down through the whole country, the Midwest, and then off to the Southeast, and then before finally shooting it down after it completed its mission. Well, do you suppose, considering the timing, considering that this balloon came meandering down into the U.S. at exactly the same time that a quote-unquote misconfiguration of a defense server happened, that this could be connected? It's official now that this particular balloon was what the U.S. is calling a surveillance balloon. And surveillance is spying, is monitoring, is collecting data and info. That's what a surveillance balloon would do. And wouldn't it have been perfect for this surveillance balloon to be flying over at exactly the same time that this information is spilling out into the internet? For the spy balloon to scrape up and collect? The article spoke about what was on that server in a little more detail. Check this out. Quote, the server was packed with internal military email messages dating back years, some of which contained sensitive personal information. Listen up, one of the exposed files included a completed SF-86 questionnaire, which are filled out by federal employees seeking a security clearance, and contain highly sensitive personal and health information for vetting individuals before they are cleared to handle classified information. These personal questionnaires contain a significant amount of background information on security clearance holders, valuable to foreign adversaries. In 2015, suspected Chinese hackers stole millions of sensitive background check files of government employees who sought security clearances in a data breach at the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. End quote. You guys, I'm going to read that again, what was on that server real quick. I'm going to go a little bit faster, but listen to what was on this server. The server was packed with internal military email messages dating back years, some of which contained sensitive personal info. One of the exposed files included a completed SF-86 questionnaire, which are filled out by federal employees seeking a security clearance, and contain highly sensitive personal and health information for vetting individuals before they are cleared to handle classified information. Folks, somebody, it seems to me, is trying to find out who holds security clearances, especially newer people. And then they're going to have all those people's information, personal information, all their background information, and then they can blackmail them, because we know this is how the controllers do it. It's the main way that they do it is through blackmail. Well, you have a server that was just pouring information out to the internet, and on that server includes completed SF-86 questionnaires that are filled out by Fed employees seeking a security clearance. Somebody's trying to find out who has security clearances. And the article itself states that in 2015, suspected Chinese hackers stole millions of sensitive background files of government employees who sought security clearances. So there's already a market for this. This has already been going on, you see? And they sell security clearances. I mean, look at Brennan. They get out of government for a while, and they set up these intelligence businesses where they're selling their clearances. Okay, Christopher Steele, MI6 spook, does the same thing. Orbitz, I think, was the name of his company. They're just selling security clearances. And Fusion GPS, I think it was, when they were a contractor, they were doing searches on people and trying to find things on them and blackmail them. Okay, this has everything, I think, to do with security clearances, and that's why we've seen all this weird shit about security clearances leading up to all this. It's because there's shit going on behind the scenes. Now, I'm not sure how all of this works behind the scenes, but I do know that we're constantly being lied to, and we have to attempt to figure things out on our own. I'm also afraid that we have a rogue government in place, a foreign-controlled government that is complicit in selling us out and leaving us high and dry when they trigger an attack on this country, which I believe is coming. I had to do a couple videos on Rumble the last week because there's been a lot going on that leads me to believe that an attack is coming. Because it looked like all this infrastructure stuff and all these, and we can go back a year ago to these food processing plants and everything blowing up and trains derailing, okay, and tankers flipping. It just seems like if you think back to U.S. conflicts, say the Gulf War or any war, what does America always do first? We do airstrikes. And why? To soften up the target, hitting infrastructure. Why? To make them defenseless. Defenseless why? Defenseless for the ground invasion that comes in, the takeover after the airstrikes. You got all this classified info stuff going on, and now we're pouring information out while a spy balloon's passing by to scrape it all up. I think we're getting close. Now, all this destruction and stuff could just be the Great Reset. It could just be pushing us into that, collapsing all of our complex systems, everything that makes us work, so that they can usher us into this completely new world that they've been talking about with new systems and new ways of doing things. Going to have to crash everything. You're never going to get everybody to switch to some new ways of doing things. You know that. It's going to take something drastic to do it. We're seeing it start to happen right now. But that's with the infrastructure collapsing and all that. What we're talking about here is possibly a foreign attack. And of course, our controlled government is volleying up the information for them and then playing dumb about it. And I definitely don't trust Microsoft with DoD servers. So, and this may or may not be related, but when we look at the past and the things they've done, like setting up closet servers in order to funnel info to foreign nations like HRC had done, and playing stupid in order to maintain plausible deniability. Oh, what, like with a hammer? What, wipe it down with, you mean with bleach? To wipe it down? Oh, what? See what I'm saying? These people know what the fuck they're doing. Playing stupid for that plausible deniability. This is the same MO. Oh, it's a misconfiguration. Oops. Misconfiguration. Think about what they're doing to you guys. Misconfiguration? What does that mean? Why would they use that word? Somebody went in, it didn't allow a password out. They removed the password. Somebody went in and changed it. Misconfiguration, sure. I guess so. That doesn't change the fact that it was done by a human. And with the checks and balances that must be in place for this, it's got to be on purpose. And then when you look at the timing with these balloons flying around and everything seeming to heat up all around us, I mean, it seems to me, let's just at least keep an eye on this one. And we can't let them continue to sweep this under the rug. Now, I'm the first person to bring this correlation up between this balloon and this security breach, this internet breach that occurred that was reported on yesterday. If you guys could, if YouTube will allow it, If you could share this with as many people as you can and try and get this particular thought out so that it can be picked up somewhere and reported on, so that it can, somebody else with more followers and things can look at this and get it out so more eyes can get on this. Because like I said, with all the security clearance stuff that had occurred over the last couple months, which I reported on, how many times did we all say this stuff doesn't add up? Attorneys are just popping into the president and finding, hey, let's search your home for some class. We reported on this. It was odd, wasn't it? None of it made sense, did it? Now you see a DoD server was misconfigured to allow emails and sensitive personal security clearance information to be poured out into the internet without a password, all the while Chinese balloons are flying all over the country surveilling us. Okay? It tells me that there's something going on with security clearances. It looks like they're trying to blackmail people who have them or people who are going to be getting them. It also seems like they're looking to see if there's any special military operations that are going to be put in place, started, that are ongoing, whatever the case may be, as that these are the things that particular server housed. This is a bigger deal than anybody's talked about thus far. And nobody's correlated it to the Chinese spy balloon. So let's get the information out and see if we can't do it. Somebody's got to bring this to the attention of the masses. I believe that it's connected. Thank you for joining me. And if you enjoyed this, like, share, please, and subscribe. And I will, hey Sandra, and I will be uploading. I mean, I have a few more videos that I can put out to you guys. I'll probably just start uploading them one after another. Unless you guys want to chat a little more today, we can also do that. We could talk a little bit about what happened yesterday in Putin's 2-hour speech. Among other things, he announced a halt to the New START agreement that was implemented in 2011. Those things, like one of the main things of the START was that they were that it limited the U.S. and Russia to 1,550 nuclear warheads each. Okay, they had to maintain status of that or lower. Which what does it take? 3 or 4 of them to blow up the world as we know it. So this agreement is silly. This START agreement, the START treaty, but it's dialogue. It's good. There was certain thresholds that they were going to continue to. So it was good that they were going to continue to try and reduce things. So it was good in these ways, but at this very moment before Putin paused it, it wasn't helping us any. Well, 1,550 warheads. Oh man, good thing it ain't 1,551, or we'd be done, right? So what? But it sends a message. It was Putin sending a message because the day prior, so 2 days ago, the day prior to Putin's speech, we see Kamala Cackle Harris head over to Munich, and she made a very peculiar statement to me. She announced that Russia was committing crimes against humanity, and that they're going to be held accountable, including their supervisors, the ones that are giving the orders, not just the ones committing the crimes against humanity. Now, you guys know all about projection, right? Okay. They're committing crimes against humanity. We all know it. Okay. About what happened in 2020. All right. End of 2019, early 2020. That's just one instance of it. Now, it's projection. And then our buddy Biden heads over to Kiev and sees Zelensky, pledges another $500 million, bringing it to $25 billion. Couldn't give us $5 billion for a wall, though. And then Zelensky takes the podium and he says if China allies with Russia, then this is going to be World War III. This is Zelensky. This is Zelensky telling the world this. Who in the fuck does he think he is? Okay? So they're digging in, okay? So it's getting close too, because they're projecting crimes against humanity on Russia. If you follow this channel, you'll know that Russia's been going to the UN Security Council for the last year, presenting crimes against humanity based mostly on these biolabs and the shit that happened there since 2014, experimenting on the eastern regions that are predominantly Russian. The coronavirus is being let out. I believe there was a case of hemorrhagic fever and other things they were letting out. So these crimes against humanity are continuously being brought to the UN Security Council by Russia. China seems to be jumping on board with it, demanding some accountability from the U.S. And that could just be talk. But as far as Russia, they're continuing this, and at some point this is going to be brought to the light. They're going to have to answer for it. And I believe the time's getting close. That's why we see Kamala Harris start her projection in Munich by saying that Russia's committing crimes against humanity and they're going to be held accountable. Biden reinforces it by pledging more money to Ukraine. And Zelensky says, China, don't get involved or you're going down too, and we're going to blow the whole world up. All right? Now, knowing what you guys know, the smartest audience out there, do you see it? Do you see it boiling? Do you see it coming to a head here? Do you see him starting with that projection? You know, just like they did to Donald Trump, like him or hate him. But initially, he's an authoritarian. He's a despot. He's Hitler. Why? In case he came into office, seen these crimes that are being committed, and decided to arrest people. Well, that's going to validate that narrative that they set up. Or remember the Boston Globe fake front page prior to the election or before he was inaugurated, where they said it was supposedly January 21st, 2017, and it says mass deportations and all this, and it reinforced what they'd been saying, that he hates immigrants and he's racist and he wants everyone deported. Well, that was because if he got into office and he started to deport these criminals, then it would validate the narrative that they had already slanderously and libelously set up ahead of time. This is what they do, in case you guys don't see it. Okay? And so this is no different. It's the same thing. They set up this pre-narrative because then it becomes this childish spat. You know, I know you are, but what am I? Well, I know you are, but what am I? And then everyone's too confused. They don't even know who's telling the truth or what. And so, again, this is the same thing, okay? They're projecting again. And so Putin responds to this yesterday with his speech, and in it, I mean, it was music to my ears. If you guys haven't seen the English version of it, you should. Talks about the what do you call it? The insanity of our leaders. It talks about the pedophilia. It talks about church. It was a great speech, but in it is where he talked about pausing the START treaty. Okay. And then he called the U.S. ambassador to Russia. He called them to Moscow for talks. Okay. So things are getting, you know, and he called the ambassador to talks over Washington's aggressive course and the Nord Stream pipeline explosions. So I just said that to tell you it's getting close to time, you guys. All right. And Putin's attempting some diplomacy. Okay. This is him attempting to tamper down the situation. All right. A very serious situation. And it's good that Putin's doing this. Now, Now, I wanted to go further and talk about well, I don't know how much time we got, but let me explain it to you like this. Well, let's just, I don't want to be a Russian sympathizer here, but just thank God that Putin's doing what he's doing, because it seems to me like it's getting closer to the time. Okay, so he's calling the ambassador into Moscow, and now in response to that, the NATO Secretary General came out and he says that Ukraine must win. He says that we must. What does he say? He says Putin must not win. We must step up our support for Ukraine. And the speech basically continued to cite the cabal talking points about how Putin is an aggressive despot, and we got to dig in to fight him, rather fight him in Ukraine than here. All bullshit, all right on cue. And speaking of right on cue, Lindsey Graham wrote a letter praising Biden's visit to Ukraine. He also cites Kamala's crimes against humanity statement, backs that up. And then Lindsey calls for fighter jets. He thinks we should send fighter jets over there. The guy who brought that abortion ban bill a month before the midterms, with a Democrat ran Congress with no bipartisanship the last 4 years. The guy that brought that bill to piss off a whole bunch of leftist voters and get them out to vote, that guy, he thinks we should send jets over there. So you can see these people are digging in. There's going to be no peace. All right. Then these statements, these back and forths, if you're paying attention, they prove this. Putin's either going to have to accept the terms of the cabal, or there will be world war. It's because if the cabal takes Russia out by getting rid of Putin, one way or another, then they'll have nobody, no country, no leader. There'll be nobody left to stand in their way for their final goals. Of course, you guys have a very good idea what those goals are. Depopulation, total control of everything, including your mind, thought control, right? So another thing was McCarthy. Looks like he handed off 45,000 hours worth of footage from January 6th to Tucker Carlson. Now, I guess one of the deals that McCarthy made to get the votes for Speaker was that he would have to release these January 6th tapes that the cabal had been hiding in order to maintain their narrative of the event. So I guess this is McCarthy making good on his promise, but is he really? I mean, these tapes are now in the control of Fox News. So, I mean, Tucker doesn't have this kind of freedom in his reporting, does he? I mean, he can't just run with, with whatever subject or story that he wants to, right? From what I understand, he has producers and that do his show, and these producers answer to Fox executives, from what I understand. Executives like Snake Rhino Paul Ryan. So, knowing what you know about the snakes and the rhinos and the cabal and the controllers, do you really think Paul Ryan is going to, or any other cabal-controlled executive, do you think that they're ever going to let the truth of all this out? I don't. They're not allowed to. So how's this going to play out? Is this a case of gaslighting between McCarthy and Fox? Is that what they're going to do here? I'll tell you right now that putting smoking gun evidence of maybe one of the biggest false flags to ever been perpetrated on Americans on the Tucker Carlson show is something that this cabal they're going to attempt to thwart with their life, in my opinion. Okay? I can't see how this info comes out unless it's faked, spun, and maybe with much of it continuing to be kept hidden from the public. anyways, anything else that you guys can think of that's happened in the last 24 hours that we could dissect and pick apart for the sheep that hopefully could someday see this? We see the what is it, the military putting in the gender quotas now. They had their first Office of Diversity, Equality, and Accessibility, or whatever it was. And apparently they're saying that diversity is an imperative goal of our military. It's imperative to our success, is what they claimed. Gender and CRT, basically CRT in the military. So I guess if you're a white person, understanding black people is a strategic priority. If you're a black person, understanding white people is a strategic priority. Even if we're in a war with, say, China, a bunch of Asian people, the imperative is that we know about blacks and we know about whites, supposedly. Now, I want my military to be a meritocracy. I want the smartest, the fiercest, the best warriors that you could possibly have. I don't want a quota. I don't want to be in a foxhole with somebody who's there because of their skin color or what sexual organ they have. It's absurd, all this CRT and all this. And I don't understand what I know what they'll say. They're going to say, well, you got to know the people that you're fighting with to better fight, to be a better force. And that's bullshit. You don't have to know any of that. You just got to be Americans. You just got to be of the same country. The race stuff is bullshit. And you got to be a whole fighting force, a unit, a complete unit. That's what you got to learn in the military. You don't need to learn this bullshit. But we know what they're doing. They're sabotaging our military. And again, as I keep saying, it seems as though we're getting closer to some kind of attack upon the country. And it could be a couple years from now. But you can slowly see the degradation of our complex systems, of our food processing, of our infrastructure, of our military. And you can just see it happening. And then the sharing of sensitive information, which looks to have been what happened here with this internet breach. And so it seems to be coming. And it seems to be right on cue, right textbook. So if you guys could, please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching.